ho and happy holidays. Welcome to our 12th day in my series of the 12 Days of DrawPaintMas. So thank you so much for joining me today. Of course, it's Christmas Eve and we are going to be focusing on drawing reindeer. So how we roll is we're going to chat about reindeer, both Santa's reindeer and the real ones on the North Pole and in the Arctic regions of the world. And then we're going to sketch them. And we're just going to use some plain paper today. I'm going to be demonstrating here and just a plain old pencil. And I might add a little red and green and gold to the reindeer and give him a little bit of a collar, a harness, because he is pulling Santa's sleigh, and a red nose. So I just wanted to start off by saying I am so grateful for this year and for you guys and for being here and being healthy and alive. I was actually in the emergency room last night and today. In fact, I still have my doodad on. And so I really want to thank the staff at the Ashland Hospital. And I asked them, hey, I'm going to teach at noon. I really got to go live. You got to fix me before noon. So I'm all fixed, at least for now. And I'm here with you. So again, thanks so much for joining me. And so I'd love to have people say hello in the chat box and tell us if you're excited for Santa's reindeer. So Santa's reindeer, both real and imagined. We're going to first talk about the imaginary ones. Now, of course, we all grew up learning about Santa and his reindeer. And that actually started in 1823 by a poem there was a poem called A Visit from St. Nicholas. And that was the first reference in 1823 to the 8 reindeer. Can anyone name them? Go Dasher and Dancer and Donner. No, I forget them already. Donner and Vixen and Blitzen and Comet and Cupid. And then in 1939, there was actually a story written that kind of fleshed it out more about Santa and his reindeer. And they added Rudolph. So we had to have Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer. And then there were several movie adaptations. I grew up with the one in 1964, the animation. And so, Rudolph was a little bit shy and the youngest one. And he happened to have this weird red nose that he was embarrassed about. But Santa said, hey, you will be great to be added to my 8 reindeer that I already have to lead the way because of your bright nose in the snowy weather. Now, today here, I'm in Oregon. We are perfectly beautiful blue skies. But tell me in the chat box if you're getting snow, if you're anticipating Santa's reindeer coming. Santa and his reindeer. Now, there's actually something a lot of people don't know is all of Santa's reindeer were supposedly males, Dasher and Dancer and Vixen and all of their names. But in real life, if there was a reindeer in the wintertime that had antlers, it was a female. Females are the only ones that keep their antlers all year. So anyway, we'll talk more about their anatomy in a minute. Kat says, sadly, no snow where you are. Yeah. Well, reindeer have been an important part of the northern cultures in both Alaska and Canada, and then over in Europe, Sweden and Finland, and all the way across Russia in the Arctic tundra. They've been really important parts of the culture for thousands of years. And so like the Mongolians are still herding reindeer, and the Sami cultures as well keep reindeer. So here in North America, reindeer were never really tamed, but they were used for food, and their skins and their pelts were used for clothing and for tents. But they were domesticated in Europe. So those northern countries I mentioned. And those people specialized in actually keeping domesticated herds. And those were used again for not only their meat, but also their milk, and they made cheese. They would ride them. They would use them to haul their belongings. And that's probably where the idea of Santa's sleigh came in. And their skins were used as clothing and for the walls of their tents. So they were an integral part, they still are, of those northern cultures. And so they play prominently in folklore and such. But they think, archaeologists think that they've been used for almost maybe from the Stone Age, from 3,000 to 7,000 years ago, they were first domesticated. So super important. Okay, well, we are going to start drawing one, and then we will talk about the really interesting parts while we go, because the more you know about the anatomy of something, the better you can draw it. So actually, in case you've never met me, hi, I'm Christine Elder, and I'm a naturalist, environmental educator, and visual artist from Oregon. And I love teaching people about the natural world and integrating science and conservation and wildlife biology with arts. And so once you spend the time to look at something closely enough to draw it, you'll really understand its anatomy. And again, I'm so grateful to be here today after my ER visit. And I really want to thank the wonderful doctors, nurses, and staff here in Ashland at the local hospital. Okay, let's see. Cindy in the chat box says you've got 4 inches in New Hampshire. Great. Okay. We will draw a realistic reindeer in shaded pencil. But even if you don't have any materials, or if you're just watching from a phone, you can watch, because sometimes that helps to watch my techniques first, and then you can follow along later on. I'm sure many of you are quite busy and on the road today. Okay. Cindy, I'll tell you guys all about my adventures at the ER in my newsletter next month. So I'm going to take a week off. Okay. So anyway, like I said, the more you know about them, the better. Now, they are actually in the deer family. So they're not in the cattle family, like, cows and all the big herding mammals in the like Africa. These guys are in the deer family, and there's about 40 species around the world of different deers. And here in North America, we have kind of the equivalent of the European reindeer. We call it the caribou here, but it's still the same species. It looks a little bit different, but they live up in Alaska and Canada. So the caribou is a close, the same species. We've got elk, we've got moose, black and white-tailed deer and mule deer. Those are all in that deer family. And so the more you understand a little bit about classification of an animal, the better you can draw it. So the most obvious difference between the deer family and the cow family are what's on top of their head here. And you can see really good, here is a good example. The deer family, they have antlers. Those are not horns like in a cow. And those are shed every year. Now, the females keep their antlers through the winter, and they shed them later on because they really use those to help them dig in the snow for their food, which they eat lichen and mosses, because they really need to eat better than the males because they're pregnant. So those females really need to keep those. So again, Santa's reindeer, if you saw them with antlers, like in the stories, those are actually females. Although in real life, the people that raise reindeer and have tamed them in Eurasia, those are generally castrated males. So that's what this is right here. But anyway, okay, so where was I? So the antlers come off every year compared to a cow, which keeps their horns on all year. And when they're growing them each year, they actually have this part called velvet. So that's in the spring and the summer. And then they start rubbing that off in the fall, and it looks kind of like skin, and it's kind of bloody. And that's actually vascularized. So that's the living part. And so they go through a process in the fall of rubbing their antlers on trees. And if you live in North America, you've probably seen those rubbings, those scratch marks on trees. They might have even damaged trees in your backyard. So that's going to all fall off. And so that's one difference between the deer family and the cow family that's most obvious. And then speaking of the females, here's a picture of a female. The males are called bulls. The females are called cows. So that's kind of funny because it is kind of like the cow family. They use the same names. And then the baby is called a calf, or like you've probably heard the word fawn, like a deer has a fawn. And so that's the little guy. Okay, so anyway, and in terms of color, they come in a few different colors. In Greenland, they're actually snow white, but some of them are different parts, kind of white and silver and brown and gray. So you'll want to think about that when you start drawing them. And then here's another good picture in the autumn where you can see their short little tail like a deer and their bright white rump. So a lot of members of the deer, as well as the cattle family in Africa, have these white colored rumps that maybe keep them together when they're running at night. Oh, and speaking of night, they have really good night vision. They can see into the UV, because remember, where these guys live in the far north, there's only about 4 hours worth of daylight about this time of year. And if you go farther and farther north, it's completely dark. So they need to be able to see really well in the dark. Okay, well, we are going to start sketching. And don't worry if you've never drawn before. I am going to make this picture bigger so you don't have to see me. And I am just going to use a pencil here. And I am going to draw a little bit darker than I want you to, because I don't want you to have to erase too much. And so I like to just do very light drawing, but I'll do it darker. Now, again, don't rush to start drawing it. Let's look at the shapes a bit. And so on the top of the deer, the reindeer, are these big antlers. And the older the animal gets, the bigger their antlers get each year until they're about 6 years old. So they can get really, really big, including, like, here's a picture. Here's how big they can get. So they can get huge when the animal is really healthy and mature. And so that's a big part that you'll draw. And then the head is kind of squared off. It looks a little bit different than like a horse head, kind of squared off muzzle. And then a fairly short neck. And then they have this long hairs down here. And the male kind of has a bigger neck called a dewlap. But those hairs help keep them warm. And they have this double coat, kind of like a wolf. If you've ever petted like a dog wolf cross, they have a very thick undercoat as well as an overcoat. And then you notice when we're gonna start drawing, you always want to notice kind of how deep the body is compared to the length of the legs. So different animals will vary. Like, for example, of course, a giraffe has really long legs, whereas something like a warthog has really short legs in comparison. So you'll kind of notice when we draw that this is like a big square, and it's gonna be drawn in kind of like in half. Okay. And so what I will usually do, we're going to start drawing. And again, don't worry if you don't have anything to draw with, is I'm going to try to put the head kind of draw it the same size. And I think we've got about the right amount of paper here. Yeah. And yeah, I want to make sure you can see the antlers. And then later on, we'll do the legs. So let's see. So just again, I'm going to draw a little darker than I want you to, because I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. But in general, I wouldn't draw quite so dark because I don't like to have to do too much erasing. Okay, so anyway, the antlers are going to be in this area, kind of almost touching the edges of the paper. And then underneath that is going to be the head. And again, I'm just kind of blocking out things really lightly, really kind of just graphically. And sometimes I'll put my pencil over here and double check. Tell me if you can see my lines. Hope you can see my lines. And then I'm going to draw, there's going to be kind of like the area for the ears and the squared off face, and then the neck. And the actual neck, again, is a lot skinnier than the dewlap part. The dewlap part's going to be kind of like this. Okay, then we have the body, and basically I want to make sure that I can fit the whole body on my page, and I might double check with my pencil. And so basically I'm going to have this kind of like this box. Okay. And he's not quite at the edge of the paper. And as we draw, again, I'll talk about the parts so you'll understand them. Okay, and then like I mentioned, the depth of the belly is about the same as the length of the legs. So I'm going to basically kind of like cut this box in half. So this is going to be the body and this is going to be the legs. All right. And then I'm going to add the shoulder. They have these withers here, like a horse does. And then that continues on to the shoulder. And then there's a leg. And again, I'm just going to block this in and get more realistic later, just showing those angles. And then the back. And then it's kind of tucked under where the tail is. And then there's the hip area. And you see this guy is bringing the hip forward. And so I'm just gonna kind of go like that. Again, just really blocky first, just to get my proportions. And then the back leg is kind of stepping back. Oh yeah, we need one more leg. Let's see, it's under the dewlap here. It's really, really walking forward towards this knee like that. Okay. Now I wanted you to notice before we get too much farther is when you're drawing something, to make it more realistic, really noticing the angles. So if you understood where the skeleton was underneath, you could draw it more accurately. And so like we have, you know, the skull here, and we have the backbone runs down here. And then we have the shoulder area. So you see an angle for where the withers are. That's where like the saddle would go on a horse. And then on the leg, they have an elbow right here, just like we do, and a knee, and then kind of an ankle here, and then their toes. And then the same back here, we have the whole hip area, just like us. And underneath that, there's the knee and the ankle and the foot and the toes. So it really helps to kind of just envision that while you're drawing. Okay. So now we're going to draw this a little bit darker so you can see it. I'll push this up a bit. We'll work on the antlers later, and they're not so important. They look really different on every animal, different sizes, different thicknesses. So we can work on those later. I want us to try to get the rest of the body first, make sure we don't run out of time. Okay, so now we kind of have it blocked in. Let's work on his head. And so he's got some big ears. He really needs to listen for predators. They have lots of predators, including wolves. It's one of their bigger predators. And then they kind of have a pretty flat face. There's a little bit of an angle where their eye is. Am I getting this too long? Oh no, it's pretty correct, pretty close. And then their snout. Now their muzzle is really interesting. It's uniquely covered in fur, in short fur. And that keeps it warm because again, they live in these really frigid temperatures. And then their chin and their jowl is kind of here. Again, just like us, got a jowl. And then let's give them an eye. And we want to shade that and leave a little highlight. So like I said before, they can see really well at night because there's very long nights. Of course, there's very long summers, light in the summertime, but at night, there's hardly any light. And I did some research here, and I read something really interesting about their eyes, that they can change color. That's right. There was a research project. So the color of the layer that reflects light, called the tapetum lucidum, and the sensitivity for light changes in the seasons. In the summer, the color of the layer is golden, and in winter, it's deep blue. And that change helps reindeer to see in the dark. Okay, so anyway, there's the snout. Oh yeah, we got to give them a little muzzle to smell with, nostrils. And so they use that to smell for predators, to smell for food. They can smell food like snow and moss and lichen under the snow. And they dig for that under the snow with their hooves and their antlers. And they'll be eating things like moss and herbs and ferns. They're not like a cow, just like grazing on grass. They have to eat different things in the Arctic. They'll eat the tender leaves of willow birch. And really, they're the only mammal that can metabolize lichens. And they eat fungi too, or mushrooms. So that's their mouth. Okie dokie. And then let's get their neck. I'm going to give them a little bit more of a graceful neck here. It's kind of arched a little bit. And then down here, again, there's a little shadow of a neck. But then you've got the hair is keeping them warm. And in the male, it's bigger. It's called a dewlap. All righty. Tell me in the chat box if you're able to see this drawing. I hope it's light enough in here for you. I'm near a window, but if I open the window, it's really, really harsh light. Okay. Now let's do the shoulder. Let me double check my proportions here. Oh, pretty close. Okay, so we got a shoulder. And, that's how this harness stays on, is they put the harness in front of and behind the shoulder and around the belly. And that's how they're able to haul loads, both your Christmas presents for Christmas and for the native people. Okay. And then a relatively straight back. I think I'm getting that back too long. No. Okay. So yeah, it seems like it's too long, but it's a really kind of straight back. And then there's an arch a little bit for the hip area because they have that vertebral column underneath that has to be really flexible so they can run. They live in big herds and they do run fast when they're outrunning a wolf. Okie dokie. And then let's finish the front legs. We've got the shoulder. And right here is the shoulder, just like our shoulder that's right next to our neck there, that angle. So probably if I have any of my nurses watching from the hospital, they'll appreciate this idea that, you know, they'll understand the anatomy. And yeah, the more you understand the anatomy, the more accurately you can draw. So I've got that leg, and then there is a knee here. So that's got to be a little bit larger. And there's also an elbow, but that's kind of being squished here by the harness, so we can't see it so well. But there is an elbow here. I mean, a knee, sorry, that's going to be bigger. And then it comes down to sort of the wrist, and then their hooves. Now, these guys are in a group. Let me see, where we call it. Oh, yeah. These guys are in the artiodactyl or even-toed ungulates group. And so that includes things like giraffes and hippos, camels, pigs, and cows. It's a bigger group than a family. And that means they have these two hooves. And you only see one from the side view. But then they have these interesting black parts here. I don't know if you can see these very well. But these really help to give them traction in the snow. They're like another hoof. And then they're actually covered. There's a lot of fur in this area and under their feet too. Okay. And then this other leg. And let's see. Yeah, I think I'm going to make it a little bit shorter. So I've got to give him a little knee. And yeah, this upper part of the leg is always a little thicker than the lower part. And I think I'm going to shorten it a bit. Yeah, I got it too long. And then there's this kind of triangle for the foot. So they've got these really big feet. They have a lot in common, actually, with some of the other animals we've drawn in this 12 Days of DrawPaintMas series, including we drew the Arctic hare. And one thing about them that's the same as these guys is they sort of change color during the season, their fur. And they also have a lot of fur on their feet to help them stay steady on the ice and snow. And then, so yeah. Okay, and then double check. Let's add that belly. Yeah, okay. And it's going to be kind of right here. And then that other leg. And again, this one is bringing the leg forward. It's lifting it. So the way it's lifted is you have to have a knee there. You have to have a joint. And then it's turned. And I had my angles a little bit wrong. And look how these feet are almost touching. So it's really cool when you learn about the structure of an animal. You can draw it better and also understand their really interesting anatomy that relates to their habitat and their lifestyle. Like their really thick coat. I gotta find... Yeah, so these guys have what's called a cloven hoof, which is two nails or toes, but we only see one from the side. And then they have this black part is hard like a hoof, and it's like a dew claw, and there's a pair of those. So not like a horse, it only has one back there. And then we got the back leg. We got a little short tail here. And then the back leg is kind of pushing. And it's really close to this here. And like that. And like that. And then the dew claw. And then the line where the fur is sort of, got to get the fur edge there. Yeah. How we doing? And when they're walking, they have these tendons that kind of click. They make a clicking sound. Now I'm going to start erasing some of these tri lines, and then we will add our antlers, and then we'll add some shadowing. We are going until the top of the hour, which is 1 o'clock here where I live. Then I got to go to the pharmacist and pick up my medications for the reason I was in the ER today. But I'm feeling pretty good now. Okay, so you see how I didn't do any erasing until right now. I try to separate those two things. And if you just draw kind of lightly and just keep correcting lightly, then you only have to go through it once. Okay, Kat said you can chat on Facebook, but couldn't on YouTube, so you switched over. Okay, interesting. And Joey says you can see fine. Wonderful. Thanks so much. Okay, let's. I'm going to bring this down so you can see the antlers. So it is a little bit hard to see. You know, I've got lots of different pictures of antlers and such. Here's a good picture with a really light background. In fact, if you want to draw those instead, you could. Those are a little simpler. See, this was my reindeer from another year. I'll just get rid of this here. I think that's a little bit better. Let's just draw those because those are a little more obvious, okay? All righty. So anyway, there's a pair of them, one on the animal's right side of his head, and they kind of branch a few times, and then another on the other side. And they're not exact mirror images. And like I said, each year the animal gets bigger and bigger. They grow them bigger and bigger. And remember, they shed them every year and they fall off. So they use them, you know, to protect themselves from predators, and the males fight with them. And then the females too use them to dig in the snow. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to draw the front one first because the back one will overlap. And so, you know, I'm not going to be too exact, but I can just see these sort of negative shapes. So the white spaces, and that's why I'm going to do this one. But don't worry, you know, it can look any way you want. Because again, these are going to vary by the age of the animal and its health. And so here's one going forward. So the more you get a chance, oh, see, I ran out of paper, so that's okay. I don't care. Okay, so that's the right antler on the right side of the head, and it's kind of a little bit lower than the edge of the head. Let me get rid of all these tri lines. So the more you know about an animal and the more you've had a chance to observe it at a zoo or in the wild, the more you know how much it can vary from what you're actually looking at. Okay, so that's one of them. And then the other one is behind. And I'm just going to draw that kind of lighter so it sort of looks like it's behind. I might even kind of shade that in. Just make it really subtle. And this other one, you see, it's kind of going behind here and over here and behind that one. Making it go behind a bit will also help it to look like it's the left antler. And again, I think I'll just shade that. Tell me if you can in the chat box if you're following along. So yeah, I think I'll just emphasize the front one a little bit more. So again, the deer family differs from the cow family in having antlers that come off every year instead of having more permanent horns. They're also a little bit more graceful looking and sort of prettier, although certainly things like gazelles in Africa, they're in the cow family, they're beautiful. Okay, so that's our front antler. I hope you can see that. Okay, I'm going to go back now. So anyway, you can do whatever thing you want with your antlers. Okay, so then we got, I'm just going to start adding some more shadows. And then at the end, we'll give them a little bit of a harness. And oh yeah, I don't want to forget to add Rudolph's nose. If you want to turn him into Rudolph at the end, you can add his nose like this. But we're going to stay kind of with a realistic reindeer for now. Okay, and so, oh yeah, well, we might want to, yeah, before we do too much shadowing, maybe we should put the harness on. This is up to you. You can add Santa's harness or not, but this is the photo that I gave my students. Some folks watching are in my membership program that I've talked about a lot, and I put a link in the chat box to it, the Nature Notebook Club. And members get my 12 pages of high resolution images that were part of this series. So, but anyway, that shows Santa and the sleigh. So yeah, maybe I'll add this. So I'm gonna go ahead and add the harness. I'm not going to try to be too realistic with it, but I am going to add some green and gold and red to it at the end. But I think I should just get this on here now before I try to add shadowing with the fur and stuff. And you know, harnesses can just look a million different ways depending. And so I'm not trying to be too realistic. And then the rest of the harness that goes back down here. I don't want to cover the rest of the animal. I just want to put some fun colors on the harness. And we'll do that at the end. Make sure to say hello in the chat box if you have any questions about reindeer. Again, reindeer and caribou are the exact same thing. It's just we call the wild cousins of the domestic reindeer caribou, and those live in North America and up into Alaska and Canada. They usually use the word reindeer for the ones that live in Asia, Eurasia, Northern Europe, that are domesticated. Again, the ones here were never domesticated. Oops. See, I am gonna fix that because I like to be accurate. I feel like his knee was actually coming a little bit more forward here because he was really lifting his foot. Okay, how are we doing? What time is it? Oh, good. We've got plenty of time. Now, this harness, if this was actually squeezing him on his dewlap area, it would be a little bit like that. Yeah, we'll do that. Okay. Now, in terms of shadowing, it would take forever to do all the fur. This is an example of how I shadow. So I'm just kind of showing the lights and the darks. I'm not trying to draw every part of the fur. Oh, and one thing that's really obvious in this drawing, actually here, you see that big white spot right there? That is a scent gland. And deer have scent glands on their legs and on their forehead, and they rub those on various shrubs and trees to communicate about where they've been, and other reindeer can smell it with their very sensitive nose to tell who's been by, what herd member has been by in the neighborhood. Okay. And so I'm just gonna, yeah, there we go. And so I would normally use a sketching pencil. Let's see, what do I have here? I actually have, I'm going to use this charcoal pencil because I can't reach my shading pencil, but it's the same idea. Is I'm just going to start putting some kind of highlights and shadows in. And I think I'll just start with the antlers and just give a little bit more definition to them. Again, the front antler, maybe just making it really a little bit more obvious. Something's going on with that pen. Yeah. And then the shadowing on the ear. And then shadowing under here. Let's see, there's a shadow under the jaw. So I'm not trying to get exactly the colors we have here. I'm going to pretend that I've got some sun. It's a sunny day, just like it is here in Oregon. So I'm going to make it like there's sunny day, and I'm going to shadow where it would be shadowed if the sun was right up here. And so like this far leg would be more in shadow, right? And then because it's between, the belly would be a little bit shadowed because it's round, it's not flat. And I can also just blend with my hand too a bit. And I'm going to give him a little bit of long fur there. I can blend some more. So shadowing is something you could take a long time to get really detailed on. I usually try not to keep you guys longer than about an hour. Oh, I got to get that little gland in there. And then let's see, again, this leg that's going to be shadowed more because it's, oh, I hear the hummingbird outside. Does anybody follow me on Instagram? I put the hummingbird. We've got a nice Anna's hummingbird outside. Okay. I'm kind of emphasizing that part of the tail is actually white. There we go. And oh yeah, I want to make sure that it looks like he's walking on something. So how we doing? Let me make sure. Now, I always talk about conservation, just wildlife biology when we're drawing, because I want you to draw something to learn about it and realize it's a real animal. And like I said, that these guys, especially in Europe, have been domesticated for thousands of years, but they're actually really struggling, especially in the wild, partly because of climate change. The polar regions of the world where these guys live, that climate has been warming 4 times faster than the rest of the world. And so when you warm up the climate, especially snow, the snow melts and sometimes it refreezes and turns to ice. And you probably understand this if you live in an area that has snow, like in New Hampshire, is that it's really dangerous when the snow melts and then refreezes and it becomes icy. So it's a lot harder for these guys to use their antlers to dig in the snow to get food. And also, they have the same issues, that conservation issues that animals do other places in terms of overhunting and habitat loss, especially many of the great northern coniferous forests are being harvested unsustainably for their lumber. So a lot of us, when we think of reindeer, we just think of the cute little Santa's reindeer, but these are real animals, and there are wild herds. Now, maybe I'll just darken this other antler more so it goes back. Kind of want to separate the two antlers. Really make this one feel like it's in front. And if the sun's over here, part of this antler is going to be more in shade. So maybe like that. So it's always good to vary the thicknesses of your lines. All right. Okay, what do we think about making this? I'm going to make this collar, or what do you call this thing? My brain isn't working quite right. Like I said, I just got out of the hospital. The harness, right. So I am going to, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use gold and red and green. And I'm going to kind of pretend that this harness is made of like a gold thread or something. And let's see. And then there's this ring on it that holds the wooden part, which I'm not going to add. It's just kind of making it decorative. Again, there's so many different kinds of harnesses and different cultures that have domesticated, these reindeer for over 5,000 years, have different types of harnesses. So I think I'm going to put little baubles on them. Now this is kind of fun. My bells here. You could always have a bell hanging from the bottom if you want. But I'm just going to put some kind of decorative doodads here. I don't know what I'm doing. And maybe some red ones here. Whatever's fun. And if you want it to look like Rudolph, you can give him a red nose. Shall I do it? Something like that? I don't know. Maybe it was glowing. Kat said, that was fun. Thank you. Oh, you're welcome. Okay, what's it look like? Not bad. But anyway, it's really always good when you're drawing wildlife to know where you're going to put the sun. If this was a shady day, like in this photograph, you can see that the lighting is super flat. So it's probably a really cloudy day. So you don't have some really bright highlights. But I pretended that like the full moon or the sun is out, and then there's just a bit more shading. So it's up to you when you're drawing an animal, but it's always good for you to consciously think about where you want to have the light coming from. Okay. And yeah, so I think I'll just go over them one more time with this charcoal pencil, and hopefully you can follow along if you want. So remember, today was the 12th day of our 12 Days of DrawPaintMas. Although I missed yesterday, which was going to be drawing Christmas trees because I was at the ER. But in this 12 days, we've drawn and painted all kinds of fun things related to the Christmas holidays and just the winter season. And so you can watch all of those on YouTube or Facebook. We started out with poinsettias. Then we drew 2 turtle doves as a nod to the 12 days of Christmas. We drew a Christmas cactus and a holly. We did not draw mistletoe. Here's some real life mistletoe I picked from a local oak tree. Mistletoe is more related to kissing your partner on New Year's. And if you look on my YouTube channel, you'll actually be able to find my workshop on mistletoe if you're interested in that. We also drew the Northern Lights, all those kind of fun things. Let's see, where's my example? Oh, yeah. So if you want to look at the other things we did the Northern Lights. This was my example. We did the beautiful Christmas cactus, which blooms this time of year. We painted the snowy owl with a really fun, interesting snowy sky. We did Arctic hares, and this is white and black charcoal on toned paper. And we did Christmas trees and baubles. And I can't find the, we did constellations as well. I don't know where I put that one. Okay, any questions? We're going to be wrapping up. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this series, and I hope you will check out my membership. Again, it's called the Nature Notebook Club, and it's my monthly membership for nature sketching and journaling. And it's just a really great way. The concept is, finding a way to get outside more often using a nature sketching practice. And I teach people about drawing plants and animals and painting and sketching in the field. I have a whole series of really quick and actionable tips and videos. And I think the best part of the club is the community aspect. We have a really active group of community members, some of which are here today, like Kat and Cindy. And so we have a community page. It's kind of like our own Facebook page, and that's where people share their sketches and journal pages and get to just share what they've been seeing out in nature, whether it's a beaver or a bear or a hummingbird. And we also have monthly meetups. In fact, because I've been so busy, I forgot to list that, but that's on Sunday. And we meet up on Zoom. And that's just a really fun, dynamic group of people. And we've got members from around the world, actually from Australia, Tasmania even, and Canada, and all across the United States. So I'd really love to have you check out my membership at christineelder.com/membership. And if you've enjoyed this series, I would really appreciate your support. I've only had 3 people donate, and it's safe to donate. Just go to christineelder.com/donate. And then you can donate via Venmo or PayPal. It's totally safe. And I really appreciate that. The donations help me to really know that you appreciate what I'm doing. And this whole series was meant to make you happier and keep you more calm during the holidays, which can be so stressful. And a lot of people, actually have a lot of depression, seasonal depression this time of year. And I just wanted to make it, more fun for you. And give you something fun to do, especially if you're alone. This is a really hard time of a year to be alone. Let's see, how are we doing here? Let me think. I think he's looking pretty good. What do you think? So even though Santa's reindeer were named Dasher and Dancer and Donner and Vixen and Comet and Rudolph, they would have been females if they had their antlers in the winter time, because only the female reindeer keep their antlers all winter and they shed them in the spring. The males shed them in the fall. So if you see an animal in the winter, a reindeer with the antlers, it's going to be a female. Okie dokie. Well, let's see. Well, I hope you enjoyed joining me today for the 12th day of DrawPaintMas here on Facebook and YouTube. This is the last event I'm doing this year. We're going to take this next week off, and I hope you find some time to relax, get outside, maybe do some nature sketching and journaling. And if you haven't done that before, I'd love to have you check out my program. And I do have a special running that if you hand in the JPEG pictures you've taken of all, 11 days that I taught of these activities, then you can get the founding members price of the Nature Notebook Club, which is only $22 a month. And this club, it's only a month-to-month membership. That's the only commitment. And it's really easy to quit. I know a lot of people are afraid of signing up for a membership and then never being able to quit. Like Amazon Prime was famous for being sued over making it so hard for people to quit. Well, I'm so confident that you would really love my monthly membership that on the very first page of the membership, once you join, there's a 1-minute video called How to Cancel Your Membership. So I'm not worried at all. If you need to cancel, you can. And so Cindy, thank you so much. I'm so glad you joined us. And yeah, if you're a member, a paying member, you get more say in what I teach. So for example, a lot of the days I taught during this 12 days of DrawPaintMas were activities that were suggested by our members. And those are folks that have been coming on and watching us live too. So I really love to teach people about things they actually want to learn about. And so what types of plants or animals, or do you want to learn about landscapes or drawing weather or clouds or like the Northern Lights? I think that was a really fun idea. I'm so glad we did the Northern Lights, which is a very Christmassy and wintry thing to do. So yeah, anyway, so that's my special. If you submit all 11 of these sketches from these activities to me by email, and I think pretty much everyone knows how to find me on social media and email me. My email is just hello@christineelder.com. And you can also find that link on my website here where you can donate if you don't feel like becoming a regular member, or if you only have $5 or $10, I appreciate a donation, one-time donation. Anyway, that's where you can find out how to get a hold of me. So yeah, so I'm going to get going. It is a beautiful day outside. It's getting partly cloudy, and I want to go for a hike before dark. And then for dinner, I think I'm going to go to an Indian restaurant because they're always open at Christmas Eve. And I'm in a different town where I live. So from where I live, so I don't know anybody here. And so that's why I was so grateful for the wonderful staff at the hospital today. They kept me company while I was getting all these MRIs and CAT scans and EKGs and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, I'm so glad that I felt good enough to teach today for you. So yeah, I'm going to go have a Indian dinner tonight. They're always open Christmas Eve. So I really appreciate you guys. And I've loved teaching all this year. You know, most of what I do are complimentary workshops to encourage youth and families and educators to join and understand the value and just the fun of sketching and how much the process of drawing teaches you about the anatomy of an animal, and it's noticing its behavior. And then if you have drawn something and you've learned enough about it, you'll be more excited and dedicated to conserve it as well. And so, like I said before, real reindeer in the wild and caribou in the wild in North America are being affected by climate change and development and all sorts of things. So anyway, I'm going to get going. Merry Christmas, or whatever holiday you're celebrating. Happy holidays. Have a wonderful Christmas and a wonderful New Year. And I hope you stay safe and healthy. That's the most important gift you can have, is the gift of health. Okay, I'm going to get going. Thank you so much for joining me today. Bye.